This is Cydni.
And I'm Sher. And each week we get together to share with you a message of hope.
It is through our own study and our personal experiences that we offer the reminder to not only seek the light,
but be the light. You can find peace, and there is hope.
And as long as one of us is slightly caffeinated, there will be laughter.
Today's topic is discovering our talents.
And we're so glad you're here.
I'm forging my way through the tip top. I'm living my life through the drip, drip, drop.
Okay, Cydni, how do we discover our talents?
Wait, I'm unprepared for that question that I just asked you 2 seconds ago what the first question was. My first talent is to forget what we just talked about.
Excellent.
That works
That's
out.
a good talent.
It is a good talent. And I'll tell you why short-term memory loss is a good talent. I honestly feel like it's really blessed my marriage because I forget what we've argued about. And there was a time in the beginning of our marriage that by the time I woke up in the morning, I forgot why I was mad at Ben. So I started keeping little Post-its to remind me. So in the morning, I really did do this. I wrote down, don't forget, you're mad at Ben because of X, Y, and Z. And probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like so many things. And so I would remind myself I was mad to help hold a grudge.
Did that work out for you?
No, I don't suggest it.
This is why you should stick with your talents of forgetting.
Yeah. Because I forgot where I'd put the Post-it.
Yeah, that's good though. Then you don't
Until
have to
Ben
be mad.
finds it.
Oh.
And he's like, excuse me, Sid. Are we on the same page with this experience of marriage? And so I did try to hold a grudge.
But I think your talent is you don't hold grudges. That's good.
Well, yeah, it's good unless you want someone to pay for not taking out the trash or commenting on how burnt your chicken is or that your shoes don't match your purse. All right, discovering your talents. If you search discovering your talents, which I think a lot of people will, have you ever looked up how to discover your talents, or did you already know what your talents were?
Oh gosh, I still don't know what my talents are.
I agree. Yeah. I don't know what they are either. Mine is hilarious.
Yeah, yours is just funny, oozing funny.
My kids would disagree. I have a video of my youngest. She was crying and I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, it's just that you're not funny. That's the video. And I was like, I'm going to show this to you later when I'm successful. And I cut you off out of the will.
I love that she said that to you. That's funny.
I delighted in it. I was like, I am funny. But I cut that part out of the video. Oh, you're so funny and cute and I love you. And then I stopped the video and I was like, how dare you?
But you just said you didn't hold grudges, but this one obviously got to you. So I enjoy that.
Well, because I said the beginning of our marriage, I wasn't good at it, but I'm better now.
Oh, I see.
So she
I
came
totally
along
misunderstood.
several years later.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
So I just feel like if you practice, you could get better at things. I'm so much better at holding a grudge.
But I think you got onto something. Like when I think of talent, sometimes you just get it by accident. You just kind of accidentally figure out what you're good at, right?
Has that happened to you?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Because in teaching, I didn't realize that I was really good at humiliating myself in front of 13 to 15-year-olds. Like I nailed it.
Like you could just do it without embarrassment.
Yeah.
That is a gift.
It is. I just would humiliate myself constantly, at least once a day.
You're like, I'm going to beat you to this. If I do it, you can't.
Right, exactly. And you just realize this is truly my talent.
So anyone listening today will feel really good about their own talents because this is the best that we can come up with.
We can come up with. What else you got? Come on.
All right. So one question that is recommended to ask yourself is, what did you enjoy as a child? Because I think it was Steve Jobs who says, you cannot connect the dots by looking forward. You connect the dots by looking back. And I might have that off a little bit, but it makes sense in a lot of ways because so much of who we are when we're born, that's our core self, that's who we are. But then the environment influences us, our parents influence us, whoever. And if we can get to that core of who we are, then you could discover things that you're naturally good at. So can you think of things when you were a child that you were good at or that you enjoyed or you were passionate about that you can now see later in your life?
Yes. When I think back when I was little, the things that I really enjoyed doing was I really was into sports. And actually sports did play a huge role in my life when I first started teaching because I got to coach because of it. And it was just fun. I liked the competition and I just liked playing sports with my friends. It wasn't ever anything serious. We always were just doing something like that.
Do you feel like you were a bit of a leader Did you organize the sports? Did you lead them? Did you ref
probably.
them?
Yes.
Just wondering.
So was I the bossy one? Yeah, probably.
And then you use those gifts to be a teacher.
Look at you connect those dots.
I know. I was looking at your past.
Yeah, good job.
Not your future, to connect those dots, like
Good
Steve
job.
Jobs.
Well, what about you?
I really enjoyed being alone and crying in the closet and eating cheap food. Turns out I still like that quite a bit. Just kidding. I always loved to write. I look back as a child and I loved to write and I loved to read simple books. And now I still like to read simple books. But I was thinking about this, that a talent or a gift that I have that is a little bit wonky to some is, as a child, I had extremely vivid dreams. And I never thought much about it until recently, when there's little seeds of this growing, but it was President Nelson shared a quote, and I'm going to read that to you, and then I'm going to tell you more. He said, "I urge you with all the hope of my heart to pray to understand your spiritual gifts, to cultivate, use, and expand them even more than you ever have. You will change the world as you do." That quote stuck out to me, to pray to understand your spiritual gifts. And I listened. I used the wording that he used in my prayers, and I prayed exactly to help me understand my spiritual gifts and help me to cultivate, use, and expand them. And after I started praying this, I realized and connected those dots that my dreams were a spiritual gift. And I hadn't seen it that way before. I love to tell people I'm that person that will be like, "You want to hear my dream last night?" Which I've read is annoying, but I don't find that annoying. But I did look in the past on this, and I realized one of the first dreams I had that came true. That happens for me. And I think it's cool. I used to think it was kind of weird, and they're very significant. For example, I once had a dream that I received black flip-flops in the mail. The next day I did.
Wow.
I know. Significant. Maybe this is the cultivate and expand them part. Yeah. And then I also had a dream that I won the lottery, and I could see the Powerball number. It was 32 in my dream, but I didn't ever buy a lottery ticket before. But the next day at work, my boss bought everybody a lottery ticket. And guess what the Powerball number was on my ticket?
32.
It was.
Wow.
So I obviously was like, "I quit. I'm going to win." And I didn't. But I had a dream about the number being the right. And then there was also times in my life where I would have a dream that would answer questions, just like out of the Bible. I'd have a question, then pray about the question, and then I would have dreams. And I started connecting that I get answers to my questions in dreams. And I think that's a super cool spiritual gift to have.
I think that's really cool that you have that and that you've recognized it and then you've cultivated it. That's really good.
I think that it was really hard to accept it because it sounds kind of silly.
Hokey.
Yeah, it does. Hokey. It does
You're
sound
welcome.
hokey. But then I felt like when I heard the quote that to understand our spiritual gifts, that my perspective was just increased. Why would we not have spiritual gifts? And what's the difference between the miracles in the Bible, those people who had spiritual gifts, to now? What's the difference? There is no difference. We all have spiritual gifts, and it's really up to us to believe that you have a spiritual gift and then to go and discover what it is and not be afraid of it or feel embarrassed about it, whatever it is, because there's people who just have a sixth sense. My mother-in-law is like that. She knows what people need and she knows what to say to them. And she just has a connection to heaven to be guided and to act. It's amazing. It's a spiritual gift.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important to find it. When I was studying this topic, how we discover our talents, I was like, I have no idea. And so I actually found some advice in an old institute manual.
Nice.
And it really ties into exactly what you're saying, though. It gives some advice. The first one is to recognize that each of us comes to earth with unique combinations of talents and abilities. And that's exactly what you're saying. All of us have these different talents or spiritual gifts. So I just kind of see us sitting there with a whole bunch of combo locks, and we're trying to unlock it and figure it out. And you have this awesome gift through dreams. And I do not have that gift at all. And so I think that's really amazing that you're able to, first of all, unlock that combination and figure out how to use it for good. I think it's cool.
I like the word combination there a lot because
me
I
too.
think that we share talents with other people. There's other people who have dreams that are vivid. And I have a friend who I think her dreams are even more powerful and vivid than mine. It's cool to talk about it, but we have a combination of that. We both have this experience with dreams and answers to questions or insight or a heads up. And so that makes you feel a little less crazy. But then we have different talents from there. And I think that is super cool to think about that we share talents with each other.
Yeah.
But I think the downfall of that is sometimes we don't recognize that as a talent. If a lot of people have it, then you're like, oh, that's not special. But
Right.
it is special. And your specific combination is special. You are built that way on purpose with those specific combination codes because of a reason and a purpose. Maybe as a mother, that you have those specific combinations to help your children unlock theirs, or as a teacher or as a neighbor or a chance encounter that you come across somebody and you happen to say one thing that inspires them. And it's because of the combination of talents and gifts that you have, you impact somebody else.
I love that. And I love just thinking about how that works because we do overlap in talents, but then not exactly like somebody else. We're all just a little bit different. And I think that's awesome. So we have that.
We are just a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The second bit of advice that it gave to helping find our talents is that when we rely on the Spirit, the Lord will help us recognize and develop our talents and abilities. And you were just saying that. President Nelson said, remind me of what he said.
Yeah, he actually uses the word urge. I urge you with all the hope in my heart to pray to understand your spiritual gifts. And ends with, you will change the world as you do.
Oh man, that is just so incredible. That is so powerful. Again, remember, we are God's children, and he's going to send us down here with gifts that is going to help not only ourselves, but his other children. And I just think that is so amazing that we have that ability to change the world.
Right. I think it connects us on a spiritual family, that we are not down here for our own gain, but we are down here to work together, uplift those in our own spaces. When I was studying also, one thing I saw a lot worded in different ways was that our purpose in life is to use your gifts and talents to help other people. Your journey in life teaches you how to do that. So our purpose in life is to use our gifts and our talents, but also I feel like the journey is to discover what those are. We don't have to know what they are this very second, but we have to work towards discovering them and use them as they come up.
Yeah. And I think as you go through life, I think you start to realize, oh, wait, I actually can do this, or I am pretty good at X, Y, or whatever. And I think that if you seek to find that, we can unlock that combination. I like that a lot. Also in the Institute manuals, it said the Lord will help us overcome our doubts and fears as we seek his help to develop our talents and abilities. And I know that's something that always holds me back is I have doubts and fears. I think I sell myself short on things.
Think so. I think that I don't know, does everyone do that? Because I do that too. And I think that holds back most people. That actually reminds me of a quote by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. For this quote, I love so much the fear portion because I think we have different reasons to have the feelings of fear. Fear that we're not good enough, that we're inadequate. Something my friend just shared with me, she had a conversation with someone else and they were discussing talents because she's incredibly gifted interior designer, but nobody knows. She's been a stay-at-home mom for several years. Nobody even knows she went to school for it. Her home is out of a magazine. It's beautiful. She's so gifted, but she has a hard time using that gift for anybody else. Because what she ended up telling me, though, I love so much, was people who are very talented at something often won't share it because of fear of, this is so important to me. This is my pearl. And if I put it out there and someone doesn't love it or appreciate for what it is, then that will hurt. And so there's fear of inadequacy, but there's also a fear of getting hurt, putting out something that is so important to you and having other people not see its value. And I thought that was a really interesting thought because I feel like that's relatable.
Yeah, I love that. I'd never thought of it this way before. We have doubts and fears. We're worried about putting something that we love so much and having people criticize it. But if we encourage each other by sharing our own talents, and then don't be afraid to tell other people that was wonderful, that was beautiful, you're so good at that, that we really are giving people permission to do the same, because it is scary. But I love that idea.
I feel like sometimes people feel bad or like they're not a good Christian if they accept that they have gifts and talents to share, because it becomes egotistic. And I feel like from people that I've been around who have unapologetically shared their gifts, the truth is that they are still amazing people and inspiring, that it gives me permission that I can share my gifts and be a good person. I can recognize and even verbally admit that I feel like I'm good at something without feeling like I'm a bad person, that I can be good at something and be a good person. And for some reason, I think we get so concerned that we have such a big ego because we say that we have vivid dreams.
That's exactly it. Because by sharing what you have, your gift, you really are giving others permission to do the same. Thank you.
It's very simple, but it's powerful.
Yeah, it is.
You sharing your gifts gives other people permission to do the same.
Yeah, I really love that a lot. That's great. So continuing on with my little list that have one more from the Institute manual, it says developing talents and abilities requires individual work. Bottom line is that you need to try. It doesn't do any good if you have a gift and you don't ever use it. Just as an example, when I read this, I thought of something that I really love music. So playing the guitar was something that was very natural to me. I was just able to play the guitar without a ton of effort. There was a time in my life, though, where I started putting a lot of effort into it, and I started to get really good. And then I stopped. So now, can I play the guitar? Yes. But I have lost the ability that I had before because I am not trying like I used to. So I think the key is, one, we've got to recognize it, then we got to put effort into it, and then we got to keep at it, because like it says in the scriptures, if you don't use it, you lose it. I'm pretty sure that's in the scriptures.
It's in the Bible.
Yeah, somewhere. It specifically says if you don't use it, you lose it.
Brother. And might I add, sister? I love that so much. It made me think of a few things. One, when we're naturally good at something, it's incredibly easy to not work at it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're better than other people at something. You're just like, okay, well, that's acceptable. So you have to find an inner motivation to take this gift that you have and grow it. Because like you said, you were already great.
I was already okay.
What did you say? You were the best in the world.
Pretty sure I said it was me.
Egotistic right here. Just kidding. No, you picked it up pretty easy, which gives you such an easy excuse to not put in the work, because you're like, I got this, I'm good. But when you did, you became great. And I think the other important aspect is that you could pick it up again right now. You don't lose it forever. That quote, I've heard it throughout my whole life. If you don't use it, you lose it. It's kind of intimidating because there's times in your life where you just can't pick up a guitar. There's other priorities. I remember talking to a friend who learned French and spoke it fluently until she wasn't around anybody, and she completely forgot the language. But also she could relearn it. It's not gone forever, which to me sounds very intimidating, to be gone forever, because sometimes it's just not possible, but it's still there. Get on that bike and ride it.
I agree.
Pull out the guitar right now. Let's go.
I need
the
to.
rest will be dedicated to your guitar lesson.
And everyone will be like, stop.
No, I've heard you. You are amazing.
That is not true. It was like 3 chords.
But I just really liked the idea that you have to put in the work, even if you're already naturally good at something. A thought that came to me when I was preparing was that we have to be willing to look like an idiot, like a fool. Be willing to start. You have to be willing to make a mistake, make another mistake, and another, because I feel like eventually you're going to make a discovery. You're going to discover that you're quite good at something, and that your gift is quite needed in the world, and that you'll be able to do wonderful things in a small capacity or in a large capacity. It doesn't matter, but you'll be able to do good in the world because you took time to uncover what your spiritual gift or other gifts are. And you now are in a position to use it because you did the work. So be willing to make a mistake to make that discovery.
I completely agree with that advice. And actually, that reminded me going back to when we started my great talent of being able to humiliate myself in front of 13 to 15-year-olds. The reason it's important to be willing to make a mistake in front of people, think about the age group I'm teaching. And I make a mistake and laugh it off. And you're just kind of, yeah, that happened again. What does that give my students permission to do? It gives them permission to also make mistakes and move on. Have a good laugh about it, learn from it, move on. And I did not realize how important that was until I started teaching. And that's important that people see you struggle and see you fail, but still keep going. That's important to see that.
I love that so much. It is important to let people see you fail and be okay with it. Because if you don't take the chance of failing, then you're not going to get where you want to be.
Right.
I love that.
But at the same time, when people do fail, it's not our place to point and laugh and mock. Everyone makes a mistake, and good for them for trying.
I love that.
One of the things that's important to remember as we're trying to discover our talents is listen to what people say about you that's positive. So if they give you a compliment, don't brush it off. And then maybe that will help guide you in the directions of where your talents are. And then on the flip side of it, we shouldn't be afraid to tell people when we see somebody and their gifts and their talents to point it out and to compliment them and to say, you helped me this way or that way. And thank you for sharing your gifts and your talents with me. And to not be afraid of that, because sometimes it is hard to recognize those talents. And maybe we could help each other out by pointing out what other people do well.
I feel like it's easier sometimes to recognize other people's gifts and their talents than to recognize your own. And again, there's different reasons or barriers that we don't recognize our own that are all personal. But it is a lot easier to recognize when somebody is great at something. I love the idea and the thought of make sure you take time to say that to them. And if you have a hard time saying something nice to someone, maybe ask yourself why. Yeah. Are you jealous? Is there like a competitive part of you that doesn't want that person to succeed? And then maybe iron that out. If you live your life open to recognizing other people's talents and gifts, you could change their life and you could help each other out again as a spiritual family to say, hey, Sher, I'll tell you something you're amazing at. I think that it is around teaching. I have got to listen to you at church teach, and I feel that some people truly have the gift of teaching. And I think you're so great at that. You're a fabulous teacher. You really are. It's a gift. You are.
I'm really embarrassed right now. I'm going to hide under the table.
No, I'm just showing you guys. It's not that hard to just compliment someone and then they get all embarrassed.
I know. Hilarious. And then you're supposed to say, thank you, Cydni.
I know. What are you supposed to say?
You're so embarrassing.
You're so good at teaching. You too. It is the worst. We need to have a podcast just on how to reply to compliments.
Thank you.
If you're someone who gets compliments.
That was the only one I've ever got. So thank you.
You handled it well. You are a great teacher.
Well,
you're
thanks.
fun.
Okay,
you're genuine.
Stop
You really are, though. And I bet that showed up, like you said, when you were a child, that you were the ringleader of the games. And it just shows that you have that ability to control.
To use your powers for evil.
No, to be a leader. It's good. And I was thinking that it's also important to recognize the different kinds of talents because it's not just on stage talents. Things like singing or playing the piano, things that I absolutely love to watch and enjoy, but I don't have that on stage talent. But I did look up talents and I found a list that was so funny. And it was talents that are less recognized. And I was thinking in my head, like kindness, compassion. And it said crying baby impressions, singing with your mouth closed, stacking dice with cups, extreme pen spinning, talking backwards. Anyway, I just thought I'd share those because they were so funny. But I think there's so many talents that are not on stage talents, like teaching, problem solving, peacemaking, being aware of others' needs.
I agree. And I think that it's important to realize that talents do look and they come in different varieties, but that's what makes the world so amazingly beautiful. One of the things that I am definitely not good at is I have no artistic ability whatsoever. So if somebody comes in and says, oh, look, it would be beautiful if we added this color and that color to the wall or the house or whatever, I can't see it in my head. I can't picture what it looks like. I got nothing. It's just all a blank page. I can't see it. But then I look at my two brothers, and they have been given this amazing artistic gift where they can build and create, whether it's through art or woodworking or wood burning or just putting things together. They can make the most beautiful pieces of art and creations. Both of my brothers are amazing at wood burnings. So I just see a piece of wood, and then they turn that piece of wood into this beautiful piece of art that I couldn't imagine in a million trillion years, which I just find those talents so amazing. And then I have a sister-in-law that is so good at growing things, not illegal things, but like actual, I know, but flowers and just plants in general. But she can take random flowers and different looking plant things and put them together and make this beautiful pattern of art. She has this gift of taking an empty space of ground and turning it into something absolutely beautiful, which I cannot do. I can grow weeds, I can pull the weeds and grow more weeds. And then I have another sister-in-law that is so good at helping people. If someone needs help with rent or clothes or whatever, suddenly here, I just happen to have a spare thing of clothes, or here's some cash. I find those gifts and those talents so amazing. I have a friend that she is so good at knowing if somebody needs something without even talking to him. I could be talking to her and she'd be in mid-sentence and she's like, oh my gosh, I got to go to blah, blah's house or call so-and-so because I think they need whatever. And I'm like, what on earth? I do not have that. I am completely oblivious, living in my own little space. Like, what's happening? Who needs help? I have no clue. But isn't that amazing that God sent us here and gave us all these different gifts and talents to beautify the earth, to help each other, to influence each other for the best? I find it so amazing how all of these gifts and talents are interwoven together to create such beautiful things. I have no idea how I got in my artistic family because I have zero of that talent.
I love that. And it made me think of how many people I know that have gifts like that. I thought of my older brother who has this ability to know also when someone needs help with something. And he's very good at learning how to do things by himself with like engines or building or creating. He just built his son for Christmas. This actually was a bit of a sting since soccer is a huge part of our life. Mine, my husband's, and Titus. And my little nephew, who is the cutest little guy, decided to get into soccer. First year, my brother welded together the most impressive and amazing soccer goal for him. And meanwhile, Ben and I are Googling, what is a good net for the backyard?
Right.
And my brother's like, bam, made it, created it. His creative mind is mind blowing of what he can build on his own. But additional to that, he could see a neighbor who needs help with a fence or mowing lawn. He is the first person there to serve. And he has been like that his whole life. He just recognizes a need, but he's brilliant enough to go and create. He's a problem solver. And he has such a good heart.
That's such a great gift.
It is a great gift. And I thought of this one class I went to at Institute, the semester of college that I went to. I remember to this day, and that was a while ago, a girl saying an opening prayer. I remember I opened my eyes to see if Jesus was there. Her prayer was so powerful and sincere and simple, but she was so connected in it that I really did like open my eyes to see if like an angel was right by her side or something.
That's cool.
And I thought that's a gift.
That is a gift.
The power of prayer, the power of faith. There's spiritual gifts and there's serving gifts. And I see it in my children where my oldest is so good at baking or learning things and applying them immediately. And then my middle child, he just has this light in his eyes. And I do believe that's a spiritual gift. I look at him and I know heaven's real. He has these blue eyes that are just full of life and joy. And I feel like I can see his soul. It's amazing. And then my daughter, she's just better than me in every capacity. And I'm glad for that. But it's just really easy to see these gifts in other people. And I think the big takeaway for me is to make sure we're telling them, because you might just help someone answer a question that they have. What are my gifts? Also, you have to be careful of what you say because you might just stop someone from going after or pursuing something. Because I do remember as a kid, someone told me my hands were too small. I'd never be able to play the piano. And I really do believe I can't play the piano. And I don't want to blame it entirely on that person. But I don't think my hands are that small. So I think she might have been wrong. But I think you have to be careful about what you say.
I think it's also important that going back to what we were talking about earlier, the idea of trying and practicing is that everybody that we have been talking about, whether it's your brother, your children, my brothers, my sister-in-laws, all of them, they acted. All of them made that first step. They acted on what they liked from when they were children or what they just naturally were good at. But then they kept practicing at it. And then they worked to create or listen or help in their own way, the way that God intended them to. And I think that's what is so important, is that we encourage people to continue to do that. Actually, I think that is a talent. I think one of the gifts that people have you ever met anybody that's just a natural cheerleader, so to speak?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just good at encouraging people. I think that is an important gift, that if you can encourage people to reach their fullest potential, I think that's really important.
Right. To bring out talents in other people.
Yeah.
I love that. All of this has made me think of the parable of the talents from the Bible, because just in summary, a master gave to a servant 5 talents. He gave one 2 talents and another 1 talent. And he then commissioned them to go out and be fruitful with them. And the servant with 5 and the servant with 2 went out and doubled their talents. And if I recall correctly, and maybe if I'm wrong, correct me. And if you don't know, then please send an email to Sher. Let her know I was wrong. But I believe that 1 talent was equivalent to 20 years of work for them. It was not an actual talent, but it was actually currency. And so it wasn't just a nickel or a dime. It was equivalent to 20 years worth of work. So this was a weighted gift. And the 2 went and they doubled their talents, and then the 1 went and he buried his. And when the master returned, 1 was able to give him 10 talents, 1 was able to give him 4, and the other one said, "Don't you worry, buddy. I got your 1 right here. It's safe." And the master was so pleased with the 10 and the 4 talents. He said that the other ones were profitable servants, but to the other one, he was like, "You worthless soul, I will cast you out into outer darkness," basically. And that there will be a place for you for weeping and gnashing of teeth. So if you don't work on your talents, guys, that's what it looks like for you.
That does not sound very pleasant at all.
Okay, but I really do have some thoughts on this. I know in there somewhere it talks about the last one, he acted in fear. And I feel like this is really harsh because that is such a real emotion.
It is.
And why was he fearful? And I've heard sermons where they talk about this specific servant, that he was lazy, that he was wicked, that he was bad. Maybe so, but he was fearful. And I think you can be good and loving and kind and full of fear. And I think that's tricky and hard because some of us bury our talents. I can see myself more in that one than I see in the other ones because I also feel scared, fearful for different reasons. But then I had a thought. Who's to say that the other 2 also were not fearful? They could have been sincerely fearful that they not only were given something to watch over, but even more than other people. And sometimes, even if we're fearful, you have to act. And I think that was my biggest takeaway is like, yes, that one was fearful, but what if the other 2 also were fearful? The difference is that they acted anyway. The fear's not going to go away. The doubt's not going to go away, but you could shrink it and you could overpower it and act anyway. And when you do that, you gain confidence to see the outcome. So I also thought, who's to say that the one who had 5 talents got another one right away? What if it took him a really long time? How long was the master away? What if he was away for 20 years? What if he didn't get those 5 additional talents until the last year? We don't know all of these different pieces. Or what if he lost 3 before he gained 5 more? We don't know. And so I thought that was a really interesting insight to wonder, we don't know what everyone's individually fearing. And a lot of motivational speakers say that they have to talk themselves into doing it. They're not complete without fear, but they're acting anyway. And so we have to do the same. We have to act anyway, even if you feel fear.
I love that insight. I had never, ever thought of it like that, but I love that because you're right. We don't know what the others were thinking. I'm sure they were afraid too, but they did something. They didn't just sit on their butt. They tried and they worked. And they didn't let fear hold them back. And I think for a lot of us, for me, I let fear hold me back that, oh, well, what if I'm not really good at this? Or what if I mess up? I'm okay making mistakes in front of kids, but in front of adults, it gets a little bit more scarier, right?
Right. And I thought, what if one of them did bury their talents for a long time, then decided not what if I lose these talents or what if I do this wrong, but decided, what if this works out? And he unburied them and then he multiplied them. Some of us are in that place, and some of us are in a new stage in their life where maybe they just retired.
I know. I'm like, somehow I feel like you're talking to me.
I am talking to you and others and myself, that there are new moments and seasons in our lives, and it might just be time that you dig up that talent that you hid and you start multiplying it. Because what if it works? What if what you want you could have? I feel like sometimes fear can motivate you. Something I've always thought in my mind was, what if I got to heaven? That alone would be a miracle. But what if I did? And what if I got to meet with God face to face? And what if he said, Cyd, you truly could have had exactly the life you dreamt of. You could have had it if you just would have tried. If you believed in yourself, if you pushed aside the fear, let it hang out behind you instead of in front of you, and instead of guiding you. What if you pushed them aside and you would have just acted? If you would have acted on faith and you would have acted on belief in yourself, then you would have had it. It would have been yours. It was right there for you. And the parable of the talents, there is talk of regret. And I feel like fear can help us if it's a fear of regret or the fear of the fact that you could have had what you wanted. Mm-hmm. You could have been who you wanted to be. You could have had it all, but you were too fearful and you buried it. It's just a thought.
Wow. I just want to say, I feel like I buried everything.
Unbury it.
It's true though. But with that, just keep in mind that life does have a way of saying, haha, just kidding. You're not supposed to go that way. You're supposed to go a different direction. So you never know. Maybe God's leading you to a talent you don't even know about yet.
I think so. I think we just have to start moving and you'll be corrected.
Right.
But if you just sit there, there's not much to work with.
Yeah, there's not much to work with then. Absolutely. If it's okay, I just want to share one of my favorite historical women.
It's okay. I give you permission to shine.
Thank you. When we're talking about talents and using gifts that might be a little weird or different or odd, I couldn't help but think of one of my favorite, if I may say, bad A women in history. I love learning about Annie Oakley. Now, I haven't read about her in a while, so hopefully I can remember and get the things correctly. But Annie Oakley was born in 1860. And I don't know if you know this, but at that time, women really didn't work outside of the home, or they weren't famous, if you will. Annie Oakley's dad died when she was 6. And she was left with a single mother with a bunch of kids. And when Annie Oakley was about 8 years old, she was very hungry and she decided to do something about it. And so she took her dad's rifle. Can you imagine this? At about 8 years old, she took her dad's rifle and went out, and I believe it was a squirrel she shot. And she started to realize that she had a gift or a talent. Because her mom was poor, she ended up being a ward of the state for a while. So she basically lived in and out of an orphanage for a few years. But when she made it back to her mom's again, after that horrible experience, she picked up that rifle again and she started hunting to get food for the family. Then she started selling it. By the time Annie Oakley was 15, she paid off her mom's house by selling all this meat and things that she had.
I'm giving you on a shotgun as soon as I get home.
Please don't.
She's like, I'm going to go shoot a chicken nugget.
Yeah. So long story short, at the time there was groups where they had sharpshooters go around and they would do different, it was almost like a circus, but it was, look at what I can do. I can shoot things with a gun. She actually went to one of these, and her future husband would call people out and challenge them to a shooting contest. And she beat him. And she was still a teenager, and he was just like blown away. This teenage girl beat me. And instead of getting angry, he ended up marrying her. So that's good. And the two of them are going to start traveling together and going to these different contests and showing how good of shots they are. It's going to get to the point where Annie Oakley is going to become the famous one. And her husband, Frank Butler, I love the one thing that he did is when he recognized how talented she was, that he was willing to step back and become her manager and let her just shine. So we have that.
Especially considering the time.
Exactly. And so I love that he recognized her talent, encouraged her in her talent, and then he was willing to let her be the star. And again, that's a gift in itself that he was able to do that, right? Yes. Annie Oakley, she's going to join Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show, which was huge. It toured all over the United States and in Europe. And she was the headliner. She became the superstar. She was one of America's very first superstar women. Everybody knew who Annie Oakley was in the United States and in Europe. But some of the things that she could do with her rifle, she could shoot corks out of the top of the bottle.
That's insane.
Right? You could throw a dime in the air and she could shoot it out of the air. Her most famous trick shot was she would hold her rifle over her shoulder backwards, and then she would hold a mirror in front of her and she could hit something looking backward just using the mirror. That's amazing. Those are just some of the things that she could do. When World War I started, she asked the government if they would allow her to train a group of women sharpshooters. They said no. And so instead, she decided to help raise money for the Red Cross to support the war effort. After all of this, Annie Oakley, the most famous woman at the time, she was a superstar. She was the headliner of one of the most famous shows that traveled all over the U.S. and Europe. She never forgot who she was. She always took care of her family. She always took care of her mother. And she always helped orphanages.
Aww.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
So when shows would go to different locations, she would always give tickets to orphans so that they would be able to go to the show. And she donated a lot of money to orphanages. And I love that she always stayed humble. She always took pride in the way that she dressed modestly and not flashy. And she always remembered where she came from. And I think that's important to remember as we use our talents. Hopefully we can use it for good. And then hopefully we can always remember where we came from and give back to that, because it doesn't do any good to have a talent if you don't put a hand out and pull somebody up to where you are. I think that's important to remember, is that we should always be using our talents to help others and encourage others to do better.
Two things I got from that story is that God will put us in situations to help us uncover what our gifts and our talents are. If she wasn't hungry that day, she was not going to go out and shoot a squirrel.
And I love that little girl's determination, like, enough.
It's
I'm
unheard
hungry.
of. It's amazing.
I know.
And so he puts us in situations that will help not only uncover our gifts, and then he puts us in positions to help who we're supposed to help. If she hadn't been an orphan, would she have taken time to help orphans? And I feel like we are the same, that we go through certain things, the polishing seasons of our lives, because our combination will help specific people. And so when you look back on the things that you have been through, the challenges that you have had, the losses, the disappointments, your weaknesses, then it's because your combination is meant to help other people who are in the same category, that give you a broader perspective and understanding and compassion towards people that you will be able to help and uplift. All right, to wrap this up, I had a few thoughts. One thing that I really love about my husband, Ben, is he gives the best compliment, and that is, you're a 5-talent person. And I love when he says that, because he's seen the good in me or in our children, and a reminder that you're a 5-talent person. Get out there and do something great. You're capable. You're sitting on a golden ticket. Go do it. And so he's similar to Frank Butler. He's like, go shoot a squirrel, Sid. And I really appreciate that he's always been like that. But recently we were in a really beautiful cathedral. And after we left, I admittedly had a little bit of a tear in my eye. And I said, that was so beautiful. I was overwhelmed with the stunningness of it. And when the light came through, because the sun was setting, it went from beautiful to, I couldn't communicate how I was feeling. It was perfect. And Ben said, that is how we are. Humans are. You are. You are a cathedral. And that if you let the light shine, you get to see the fullest capacity of what it is. It's beautiful, but when you let the light hits it, it's stunning. When we make the decision to let our light shine, to undig our talents and to step forward, pushing aside the fear, we're going to allow God to work through us and help us to become our fullest potential. I think it's really important to be surrounded by people who are willing to say the good about you and willing to support you, whether it's my husband or it's a Frank Butler in your life, but being willing to say something beautiful about yourself to help you and give you permission to allow God to work through you, truly, to let the light hit and let it shine to its fullest potential. And there is a quote that I want to share with the idea that you need to figure out what you're passionate about. That is where your purpose is. There's something that has appeared over and over and over in your life that is touching your soul, whether it's, I want to write a book, I want to write music, I want to, whatever it is. Those sparks in your heart are purposeful. They have meaning. It's not just random. And President Joseph F. Smith said, we catch a spark from the awakening memories of the immortal soul. Those sparks that we see and those sparks that we feel, they are not by chance. They are part of your purpose. They are part of your soul. It's eternal. It's not just, this would be a fun hobby, but there's actually meaning and purpose for you to discover there. And it's time to undig it, and it's time to let those lights shine in those windows.
That's part of that combination that God sent us here with, and we need to unlock it. That's part of the fun and part of the challenge here on earth. Well, I don't know if it's fun, but
it's hard. Digging up stuff is hard.
It is.
But so is burying it.
It's true.
Pick your hard.
For our challenge this week, let's find our talents. Let's find our gifts that God gave us. So Cydni has 3 questions to ask you to help you out with that.
Yeah, we want you to answer these questions. You could write them out or just think about them. What did you enjoy as a child? Really think about that, because hidden there, as Steve Jobs says, are your connection to your dots for your purpose. And then ask yourself, how do other people see you now? And how do you want people to see you? Just start there.
And also, if you're not feeling that, go to somebody that you admire and tell them what their talent is. Let them know what you see in them. Let them know the gifts and the talents that you see in that person.
Get out there and let your light shine. You truly have a purpose. You have gifts, and it's time to uncover them. Don't dig them. Wait. Our final thought is, don't forget that you came to earth with gifts and talents, and it is time for you to no longer bury them.
Have a good week.
I'm forging my way